Greetings. Alexei is my name. There's nothing remarkable to share about myself. I am just an ordinary young man living an unremarkable life. Never before had I imagined that a typical evening would transform into absolute terror. The incident began with the electrical supply failing. Initially within my residence, then across all neighboring streets. Peering out the window, I realized darkness had enveloped everything completely. Absolutely everything. The metropolitan area had vanished into impenetrable blackness, as if erased from existence. Another power failure, I muttered, fumbling across my desk for my mobile device. The illumination from the screen pierced through the darkness, revealing my familiar surroundings which now appeared strangely foreign. Internet connectivity failed to establish. The display indicated no network available. I approached the window and listened attentively. An eerie silence prevailed. Typically, even during nocturnal hours, one can detect vehicular noises, emergency sirens, or tire friction against pavement. But at this moment, complete quiet. The silence possessed such density that it seemed to infiltrate one's respiratory system. "Hey, do you have electricity?" I heard my neighbor, Uncle Ilya, call from the living area. Curiously, his voice contained a tremor. "Can you see anything out there?" "Nothing at all," I responded. "Probably just a substation malfunction. Service will resume shortly." My assessment proved incorrect. 30 minutes elapsed without restoration of power. I ventured into the communal hallway. Several residents stood with flashlights illuminated. All gazed toward the windows, beyond which stretched infinite darkness. One gentleman attempted humor about apocalyptic scenarios, but nobody found amusement in his words. "Where is the lunar body? Where are the celestial lights?" suddenly whispered an elderly woman from the 4th floor. Raising my head, I acknowledged her observation's accuracy. The firmament appeared as a black void, devoid of any celestial objects. It seemed as though something had isolated us from all external reality. After approximately 5 hours, anxiety began intensifying among us. I activated a battery-powered radio receiver. Silence prevailed, as if universal existence had suspended operation. Outside, not a single street lamp glowed, no vehicles moved, no pedestrians traversed the streets. Only dark emptiness remained, an emptiness that appeared disconcertingly animated. At one point, I perceived movement within the blackness. Initially dismissing it as imagination, I nevertheless avoided approaching windows thereafter. Someone began weeping in the stairwell. Descending, I discovered the elderly 4th-floor resident, Uncle Ilya, and several neighbors congregated near the entrance door. The elderly woman stared into the darkness, whispering, "It exists here. It has arrived." "What has?" I inquired. "Refrain from looking there, young man," she whispered. "They observe us." I first detected footsteps around midnight. Heavy, moist footfalls, as if someone outside traversed through muddy terrain. Pointing my flashlight through the window into the distance, I saw nothing. Yet the footsteps continued, moving across the asphalt beneath our windows. "Who's there?" shouted one resident. His voice echoed through the emptiness. The footsteps suddenly ceased. Absolute silence descended. "Are you insane?" hissed Uncle Ilya, pulling him away from the window. "Maintain silence." "What's occurring?" I asked. He turned toward me. His eyes darted nervously. "I am uncertain, young man, but apparently something exists within the darkness." We decided to congregate within a single apartment. The elderly woman brought candles and religious icons. Others contributed food supplies and illumination devices. Uncle Ilya clutched an old shotgun, as if such weaponry could protect against unknown entities. "Will electricity return?" asked a young man approximately 20 years of age. "If not, we'll await dawn," Ilya responded. But dawn never materialized. Outside remained only darkness. Darkness seemingly infused with something tangible. As we sat together, scratching sounds emanated from near the entrance door, like claws scraping against wooden surfaces. "Do you hear that?" I whispered. Uncle Ilya silently raised his weapon. The scratching ceased. After 60 seconds, something began respiring directly outside our door. It's merely air currents, stated the elderly woman. Yet fear glistened in her eyes. Air currents, dawn, breathe. Morning brought no changes. Checking my timepiece. 7 a.m. Yet illumination remained absent. Beyond our walls, the same impenetrable blackness. Attempts to establish telecommunication connections proved futile. All devices remained non-functional. This exceeds simple power disruption, declared Ilya. Something unusual transpires here. Standing beside the window, I gazed downward. Something within the darkness shifted. A figure. A black silhouette, motionless, staring directly upward at me. I recoiled and deactivated my flashlight. What did you observe? Someone inquired. Nothing, I falsified. But I had seen something, and that entity had perceived me as well. Absolute catastrophic situation. Ilya cursed, repeatedly tapping his non-responsive device screen. 3 hours past midday, yet nothing changes. No dawn, no illumination. As if we're completely isolated. We must implement some strategy, I stated grimly. By 2 hours past midday, food supplies diminished, and along with them, our previous apprehensive silence. Neighbors' visages appeared ashen and exhausted. Sleepless night, persistent fear, endless darkness beyond our confines. We all assembled within Ilya's residence, his living space being most expansive. Perhaps daylight hours will bring alterations, timidly suggested Olya, a 19-year-old female resident from the ground floor. Her voice trembled similarly to her hands. Uncle Ilya laughed bitterly. Look outside, young woman. Day and night have become indistinguishable. Enough, intervened Dimka, an older student and apparently Olya's romantic partner. He exemplified those attempting to project greater courage than internally experienced. Essential to maintain composure. Raisa Petrovna, the elderly woman with religious icons, occupied a corner while muttering inaudibly. Despite her advanced age and wrinkled appearance, her eyes reflected a fear rendering her paradoxically more youthful and vulnerable. Where has Sanich disappeared to? Dimka suddenly questioned. He stood near the window, attempting to discern something within the darkness. Who? I asked. The third-floor resident. He mentioned investigating the transformer substation. I watched him leave yesterday, I remarked. Dimka raised his eyes, and I noticed genuine fear in his expression. He never came back. Everyone froze. Even Ilya stopped fiddling with his device. Rada suddenly lifted her head. Has it taken him? She murmured. The darkness captures those who step into its realm. For goodness sake, enough with these superstitious beliefs. Ilya burst out, though nobody paid attention to his outburst. Sanich indeed hadn't returned. The darkness had begun claiming people. First was Lena from the 5th floor. She decided to go down to the basement, thinking there might be a generator. We waited for her return for 2 hours. Nobody heard any footsteps, screams, or any sign whatsoever. She simply disappeared. The next victim was Kirill, a young man from another apartment. He went to the adjacent entrance building, 2nd floor, to collect some necessary items. I heard his footsteps fading into the darkness beyond the doorway. We waited, holding our breath. Kirill, Dimka called out, positioned near the stairwell. The response? After the third attempt, no one emerged anymore. We locked ourselves in the apartment like rats in a trap. Staying here waiting for rescue shows lack of intelligence, declared Ilya during the evening hours. We sat in the kitchen area, sharing the last pack of cigarettes. If not for the old woman with her folktales, we would have found the transformer and dispelled this cursed darkness already. Sanich tried that investigation, I pointed out. And what happened? I asked. Maybe he never reached his destination? Perhaps fear overwhelmed him? Surely you understand, Alexei, if we just stay put here, inevitable death awaits us. Supplies aren't endless, and once the lights and battery power are gone, without water, without food, how long might we last? I remained quiet. His assessment had validity. Go. Dimka suddenly announced upon entering the kitchen. Together with Ilya, traveling as a group provides better security. I'll join you too, I stated, though just thinking about venturing into the darkness made my stomach tighten uncomfortably. Where do you plan to go? Rada Petrovna's voice rang sharply, reminiscent of a strict teacher. Looking for your graves, perhaps? I beg you, don't go out there. Darkness isn't forever, old mother, Ilya responded curtly. We need to find the electrical substation, or at minimum, determine the nature of the strange phenomena occurring around us. We equipped ourselves. Flashlights, batteries, knives, guns, food. Olya and the elderly woman opposed our decision, but we were three. We agreed to head toward the transformer substation located at the edge of the courtyard. Nothing extraordinary. About 5 minutes walking distance, yet outside, nothing familiar awaited. Only darkness existed there. We stepped into the street. The air was cold, almost lifeless. Our flashlight beams cut through the misty conditions but failed to scatter the gloom. It had liquid-like density, resembling oil in consistency. Icy wind penetrated our skin layers. Stay close, advised Ilya, firmly gripping his weapon. We moved forward. Our footstep sounds seemed muffled, as if the ground absorbed their acoustic qualities. A faint creaking noise coming from the side made me stop. I heard something, Dimka whispered. What? Asked Ilya. Something's moving there. I turned toward the sound. The flashlight illumination revealed nothing. Yet I could swear something was watching us. To the left, deep in the courtyard, where children's playground equipment used to be, a silhouette stood motionless. Move faster, instructed Ilya. We quickened our pace. The substation grew closer. This way, Dimka murmured. We approached the substation structure. Its metal door stood partially open. Ilya pushed it with his foot. The light beam revealed an empty interior. Inside, inactive switches, twisted wires, and across the floor, bloody markings. What is this? Dimka whispered. The flashlight trembled in his grasp. The electrical switches were in the active position. Yet there was no light, suggesting the problem extended beyond this particular substation. Let's leave, said Ilya. Nothing useful remains here. At that exact moment, I heard footsteps. Heavy, wet, echoing footsteps, somewhere beyond the substation doorway. Who's there? I whispered, pointing the light toward the darkness. No answer came, but the footsteps continued, approaching. Closer, even closer. Get out now, Ilya commanded loudly. We exited the substation hastily and ran toward our residential entrance. Breathing strained within our chests. My own footsteps became nearly inaudible beneath the resounding impact of alien footsteps behind us. Upon reaching the staircase, we secured the door and barricaded it with furniture. What was that? Dimka asked, breathing heavily. Ilya remained silent. Meanwhile, I looked through the window. In the depths of the courtyard, next to the substation, a silhouette stood within darkness, watching our location. It was quite tall, had elongated arms, and seemed to undulate in sync with the darkness. We returned to the apartment. We stayed there for additional time, but merely sitting and waiting for uncertain circumstances seemed excessively unproductive. I determined that exploring the building's roof might prove beneficial. Perhaps from that height, we might observe surrounding conditions more effectively. The roof? Dimka repeated when I presented my suggestion. His voice contained trembling qualities. This is madness. Alexei, that thing is outside. What if it follows us up? Better than sitting idle waiting for it to arrive here, I responded, trying to project confidence. In reality, my internal physical responses contracted with fear. Ilya remained quiet but nodded affirmatively. He looked exhausted, his face showing fatigue, eye areas reddened from sleep deprivation. All right, we'll investigate. Perhaps a higher position provides better visibility. Olya stayed with Rada Petrovna in the apartment. The elderly woman refrained from speaking. She merely watched our departure, seemingly convinced our return would occur with reduced numbers. Climbing the staircase proved inherently frightening. Each step produced echoing reverberations throughout the empty entryway, flashlights extracting deteriorating passages and secured doors from darkness. The air here was moist and dense, resembling pre-storm conditions. "I smell something," Ilya suddenly announced, stopping on the landing. "What?" Dimka asked. "Do you smell it?" Ilya listened carefully. I copied his action. Yes, from above came peculiar sloshing sounds, as if something was moving through water or manipulating wet soil. "Let's hurry," I muttered. The roof access door stood partially open. Somehow this seemed wrong, suggesting an anticipatory presence awaiting our arrival. We emerged outside. Darkness here was even denser. Thick fog spread across the roof surface, illuminated exclusively by our shaking light beams. Gentle air movement touched our faces, carrying smells of dampness and additional metallic components. "This way," Ilya murmured, directing his light forward. We spotted them almost immediately. At the roof's central area, within dark, nearly black water, corpses were positioned. 4 or 5 human forms. Exact counting proved impossible. They existed as if their anatomical structures had been twisted and extended into unnatural configurations. Many displayed unnaturally elongated arms, thin as sticks. And their heads? Skulls pulled backward with such force that neck regions appeared internally ruptured. "My God," whispered Dimka, covering his mouth with his hand, his breathing pattern becoming irregular. The bodies showed complete blood drainage. Water flowed from their forms, gathering into pooled areas that appeared to move independently. The liquid appeared dark and viscous, resembling darkness itself. And those faces, the ones whose heads were visible, lacked eyes. Instead, empty, dark hollows gaped where eyes should have been. "What happened to them?" I rasped. It's Sanage. Dima stepped forward, illuminating something at the edge of the puddle with his flashlight. An old cap lay there. "That's his cap." "Back," I barked, grabbing his shoulder. "Don't move." Dima froze. At that moment, I noticed movement. The puddle of water twitched. No, not the puddle. The bodies. Their arms jerked toward us. They, moving. I exhaled. The corpses began emitting horrific, raspy sounds, a mixture of moans and gurgles. As if something was trying to escape from inside their bodies. "Run!" I shouted. We raced down the stairs without looking back. Behind us echoed dull thuds and sloshing sounds, as if someone heavy was walking across the roof. I kept seeing those contorted figures, empty eye sockets, and that dark water flowing from their bodies. "Lock the door," I yelled as we burst into the apartment. I slammed the door shut and pressed my shoulder against it, as if that could save us. Dima collapsed onto the sofa, breathing heavily. Ilya silently checked his shotgun, his hands trembling. "What did you see up there?" Olya asked, approaching cautiously. Her voice contained more panic than curiosity. "Bodies," I whispered. "On the roof." "What happened to them?" "I warned you," the old woman suddenly said. She stood tensely, gripping her arms so tightly her knuckles whitened. "The darkness took them, and you'll be next if you don't stop." "What nonsense are you spouting, old woman?" Ilya turned to her angrily. "It chooses. Those who fear, it takes first," Iroida continued. "Their souls drown in darkness. They, part of it now." "What rubbish," Musia scoffed. "It's not rubbish," Dima whispered. He sat on the sofa, staring at the wall. Leoka saw it. They were moving. Their souls haven, departed. They, there. We fell silent. I looked out the window. The darkness beyond the glass seemed even thicker. For a moment, I thought I saw a face in the reflection, pale, with empty eye sockets. It was watching me. I moved away from the window and decided to rest briefly. I couldn't understand why the old woman was acting as if she knew something, inventing who knows what. I realized we all on edge and frightened. They already seen more than we might normally see in our entire ordinary lives. But her words only frighten everyone further. Or perhaps she actually knows something about this darkness. I need to raise this issue, but not now. First, I need to rest and collect myself. Dima's voice pulled me from my half-slumber. Are you sure we'll survive until morning? He asked as we sat in the darkness. The question was rhetorical, but his voice made me shudder. We looked as if our last reserves of strength had been drained. Olya was curled up in an armchair, shivering under an old blanket. Iraida Petrovna muttered something under her breath. Prayers or incantations, who knows? Ilya pensively checked his shotgun, but his gaze was vacant. We'll figure something out. I lied, fully aware we wouldn't figure out anything. Outside stood absolute, impenetrable darkness. The wind had stopped. It was quiet, too quiet. Only occasional footsteps on the roof reminded us we weren't alone here. Iraida, I addressed the old woman. You know something about this darkness. How can it be stopped? She raised her tired eyes to me. Darkness cannot be stopped. It was here before us and will remain after. This isn't just gloom. It's hunger. It comes for those who look. What are you talking about, old woman? Ilya bristled. Let me tell you a story. I always lived in the city, but in 1976, in a small village about 20 kilometers from town, something similar to what you're seeing now occurred. I was still a child. For several days it was dark. Light prevented the darkness from approaching, but those who ventured into the darkness disappeared and never returned. By the time the darkness receded, almost no one from the village remained alive. From there, and as it turned out from neighboring villages too, the military evacuated everyone, providing housing elsewhere and forbidding talk of what happened. The whole story was hushed up, but here it is again. Darkness? I've heard this tale, said Ilya. Locals created an urban legend, and in your old age, you latched onto it. It's no tale, Ilya, the old woman said. Suddenly, there was a knock, dull but confident, right on the door. Once, twice, we all froze. I slowly rose, staring at the door. Dima muttered something, and Olya whimpered. Is it one of our people? Ilya whispered. Did you see our people on the roof? I forced out, continuing to watch the door. The knock repeated, louder now, as if something large and heavy was trying to enter. Is the door locked? Ilya asked. I nodded. He slowly approached and bent down to look through the peephole. Don't do that. The old woman suddenly barked, but it was too late. Ilya recoiled from the door as if electrocuted. He fell to the floor, the shotgun slipping from his hands. His eyes were wide open, his lips trembling. It's watching, he whispered. It's watching me. What did you see? I rushed to him, trying to shake him by the shoulders. Eyes, he whispered in a breaking voice. Just eyes, many eyes. The knocking stopped, silence fell, but now I felt it was here. Somewhere behind the door, watching, waiting. We sat on the floor, surrounded by the dim light of the flashlight I had placed on the table. The light wavered, like our nerves. We need to do something, I said. We can just sit here. And what do you suggest? Asked Dima, who had been staring at one spot on the wall all this time. Go out there and die? I turned to Iraida. Do you know how we can save ourselves? Do you think if I knew, I wouldn't have told you before? Don't be foolish, Leosha. But you didn't mention you encountered this darkness before, I said. What was the point? To spread more terror? I don't know how to fight it. True enough, I thought. If we don't look and stay together, we might weather this. Last time, it went away. Maybe this time it will leave too. And if it doesn't, Dima asked. The old woman remained silent. We heard footsteps, this time inside the apartment. First somewhere in the hallway, then right in the room. I raised the flashlight and directed it toward the bedroom door. It was closed. In there. Someone's in there, Bolia whispered. It's just us here, I managed to say. But the flashlight flickered, for half a second, yet that was enough for me to notice movement by the window. Something stood there, a tall, indistinct figure, as dark as the night itself. It remained motionless, simply observing us. It's here, Dima mumbled, clutching his head. Ilya suddenly leapt up and seized the shotgun. Enough. I refused to just sit around. Ilya, Don, T. I shouted. He moved toward the window and raised the weapon. Ilya, I said, calm down. We all on edge. Things won't improve if you lose control too. You rewrite, kid. I apologize, he replied. We sat in silence for some time, contemplating our situation. We could cover the windows with garbage bags or newspapers, anything to avoid being distracted by what was happening outside. I didn't believe it would help much, but at least we'd be occupied with a task and divert our attention. That was my thought. We spent some time doing exactly that, and then silence descended again. No strength remained. I sank to the floor and buried my face in my hands. Darkness had surrounded us, cutting off all escape routes. While we remain here, we have supplies for a while. The main concern is having enough batteries and candles if needed. We'll search neighboring apartments and gather what we can. Perhaps we'll manage to wait for dawn, Ilya stated confidently. Dawn will come, the old woman said. It always does. We just need to survive the night. I raised my head. And if it doesn't, Iroida gazed at me with exhausted eyes. Then we are alone. Several more days passed, and one morning, I awakened to bright light that hurt my eyes. Not immediately understanding where I was, I suddenly realized, I am alive. I was lying on the living room floor, fingers gripping the ideal. Leoka, Dima hoarsely whispered, showing signs of life nearby. He looked, to put it mildly, far from his best, pale, with purple circles under his eyes, as if he'd been tortured all night. It's dawn. I turned my head and nodded. Bright rays of sunlight penetrated through the dusty glass. We had survived a night that had lasted nearly a week. But was this truly a victory? Olya, I called, turning around. She sat in the corner, arms wrapped around her knees, silently staring at the floor. Iroida Petrovna lay on the couch, eyes closed, her breathing barely audible. Ilya, waking up and seeing the light, transformed from an exhausted older man into a revitalized, energetic teenager. As if he hadn't experienced everything we'd been through. We made it, Dima said, as if not believing his own words. I silently approached the window and flung it open. Inhaling the cold morning air, it was fresh and real. But beyond the apartment, everything was different. The city was frozen. Bright streets stood empty. No cars, no people. Only motionless bodies lying on roads, sidewalks, and lawns. I thought I recognized familiar faces among them. God, Dima whispered, peering over my shoulder. I switched on my phone, which I had previously turned off to conserve the battery. The phone had neither signal nor internet. I turned on an old radio receiver I had found at Irida's. I twisted the knob for a long time until I caught a trembling, crackling voice. Attention! This is an emergency broadcast. Darkness has engulfed much of the planet. Numerous regions are completely without power. I stared at the radio, afraid to trust my hearing. Casualties are estimated in the billions of lives. Military and scientists cannot explain what has happened. All communication stations are out of order. Complete infrastructure restoration may take years. No one can say whether this will repeat, but we recommend that everyone who has the opportunity stockpile supplies and light sources. The voice faded. Only light static confirmed that the signal hadn't been cut off. So this was everywhere, Dima muttered. I nodded, trying to process what I heard. How many more like us? He asked. I didn't know. Perhaps we were alone among the survivors. Perhaps elsewhere, people were emerging from their homes, surveying dead streets and finding nothing. Can it return? Olya suddenly asked. I turned to her. Her eyes were vacant, like someone who had witnessed too much and didn't know how to continue living. Nobody knows, I said quietly. Well, you heard. We need to gather supplies. Dima, Leoka, let us go, I said. I completely agreed with him. Hope ignited in his eyes. It even brought a smile. To be honest, the first since all this began. I don't know if this will happen again, but we must be prepared. Thank you all for watching this video. Since I recently started writing and posting my stories, I would greatly appreciate if you wrote in the comments what should be changed, what you liked or disliked. You can also suggest your own stories or simply write what kinds of stories you would like to see on my channel in the future, because what I do is for my viewers. For you, this will really help me create exactly the stories that will interest you. Also, subscribe and like. We hear each other in the next story.